The November wind howled like a wounded beast, pounding against the gnarled walls of Blackwood Mansion. The rain pounded down, blurring the outline of the already bleak house. Lost deep in the vast Maine woods, Emily Carter, a young paranormal investigator, came here obsessed with unraveling the mystery shrouding this cursed place. The legends of Blackwood have been stirring people's minds for over a century. It was said that here, far away from prying eyes, the old Blackwood family performed macabre rituals associated with otherworldly forces. There was talk of sacrifices, forbidden knowledge, and a curse on anyone who dared to disturb their peace. The mansion greeted me with an oppressive silence. The smell of mold and mustiness permeated every corner. The furniture, covered in a thick layer of dust, seemed like ghostly silhouettes in the twilight. I lit an old kerosene lamp, and its trembling light brought out the cracked wallpaper, the portraits with faded faces, and the cobwebs hanging from the ceiling like shrouds. The first days were spent in researching the archives left by the last owner of the house, Professor Alan Blackwood, who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances 10 years ago. His diaries were full of crazy theories about portals to other dimensions and the entities inhabiting them. He wrote that Blackwood was not just a house, but a place of intersecting realities, where the line between the world of the living and the dead was blurred. With each page I read, I became more and more horrified. The professor described strange sounds, whispers coming from empty rooms, and chilling visions. He felt a presence, cold and invisible, following him around. I began to notice the same things. At night, in the silence, broken only by the howling of the wind, I heard soft footsteps upstairs. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed alive, changing shape. One night I awoke to the sensation of someone standing at my bedside. I sat up sharply, and in the moonlight streaming through the slits in the shutters, I saw a silhouette. It was blurry, shapeless, but I could feel its icy gaze on me. The fear grew every day, turning into a paralyzing terror. I realized that Professor Blackwood was right. There was evil in this house, waiting to happen. One day, while exploring the basement, I came across a sealed door. It was made of thick metal and hung with chains. My instinct told me that something terrible lurked behind it. Overcoming my fear, I found an old key hidden in the fireplace and opened the door. Behind the door was a small room, lit by the dim light of a single candle. In the center of the room stood an altar covered in dried blood. On the walls were inscribed strange symbols that looked like runes, but evoked inexplicable fear. And in the middle of the altar lay a skull, a human skull, engraved with the same symbols as on the walls. Suddenly the candle went out, and darkness enveloped me. I felt a cold touch on my neck. From the darkness came a low, whispering voice. "You disturbed us." I screamed and ran out of the room, locking the door behind me. I couldn't stay in this house any longer. I gathered my things and ran to my car, feeling the unseen gaze on me. I started the engine and drove out of the yard. Looking back, Blackwood Mansion stood, dark and ominous, as if watching me, and that's when I noticed it. There was a figure standing in the second-floor window, a human figure, dressed in period costume. I recognized him from the portrait hanging in the living room. It was Alan Blackwood, but that was impossible. He had disappeared 10 years ago. I stepped on the gas and sped away from the damn place, but the horror wouldn't let me go. In the rearview mirror, I saw Blackwood's silhouette coming toward me. He got closer and closer until he was right behind my car. In desperation, I swerved off the road and hit a tree. The car stalled. I tried to get out, but the door was jammed. I was trapped. And that's when I saw him. Alan Blackwood was standing in front of my car. His face was contorted with madness and his eyes burned with inhuman fire. He held out his hand to me and whispered, "You belong to us." Everything went black. I woke up in that very room in the basement. I was lying on the altar, bowed. Alan Blackwood was standing over me with a knife in his hand. He was smiling, mad and creepy. At last, he whispered, "We will complete the ritual." And that's when I realized Professor Blackwood wasn't just researching otherworldly forces. He served them. He made sacrifices to them. And now I was next. But that was not all. Other figures entered the room. They wore black hoods and carried torches. Their faces were hidden under hoods, but I could feel their presence, angry and hungry. And among them, I saw myself. It was me, dressed in a black hood, with a torch in my hand. My face was contorted in a mad smile, and the same inhuman fire burned in my eyes that burned in Blackwood's. I realized what had happened. Blackwood Mansion had changed me. It had consumed my soul and turned me into one of those entities I feared so much. The ritual had begun. My scream was lost in the howl of the wind, in the sound of the rain, in the ominous whispers of the cult members. I was part of the Blackwood curse, doomed to wander forever through that cursed house, sacrificing to those who would dare disturb their peace. And now I wait. I wait for the next person to come here, obsessed with unraveling the mystery of Blackwood. I'm waiting for the next victim. And if you're reading this, know that you're already in danger. Blackwood is calling you, and there's no way to resist.